Welcome to the second episode on motion design using Adobe After Effects. And in this episode, I'm going to teach you how to animate this. It's very simple again, and in the next 30 minutes, you will be able to animate this. This can even be your first legit UI animation on After Effects. Are you excited? I am. Stay tuned. Here's a sample UI that we are going to animate today. I created this on Figma just to teach you this animation, and I will leave a link to this file in the description so that you can use them when you try it out. This is a home screen listing with filters. The filter options appear on a bottom sheet right from the bottom like this. While that happens, the home screen in the background also shrinks in size and stacks right behind the filters with a black overlay in between. So yeah, this is how it will be, and the first step is to create the assets, which I have done right here. We don't need to do anything to the home because we are not animating anything inside it. It can remain like a single asset. I've rounded the top corners a bit, which should show up when it shrinks. The filter bottom sheet is where all the animation happens. Hence, I've separated the background from the foreground elements like the price, bedrooms, bathrooms, and amenities, which I've grouped with a button. Now we need to export all these elements as separate image assets. Here I've exported all the assets, and all these assets are transparent PNGs, which means that all the corners which are as a part of the design are clearly visible in the assets as well. Next, we start with our animation, and to do that, we go to After Effects. Once in After Effects, we'll have to import all the assets which we have just exported. So while on the project panel here, we double click on it and navigate to the folder where all our assets are present. We select all of them and click Open. This will bring all the assets into After Effects. Please note that these assets are not embedded inside After Effects as such, but they are merely linked, which means any changes that you do to these images outside in the Finder, it's going to affect here in After Effects. It's a good thing as well as a bad thing. For now, let's assume it's a good thing. Next, we'll create a composition which is of the same size as our artboard, which is 1080 by 2400. It's one of those long high-end Android phones, let's assume. For frame rate, let's use 60 FPS, and for duration, we'll use a duration of 10 seconds. Although our animation is not going to be longer than 4 seconds, but for the ease of using, we'll use 10 seconds. And we can also give a name to the composition. Instead of comp1, we'll call it main filter animation. Yep, that's better. Let's go ahead and click OK, and this is the composition which is created for us. So this is going to be our artboard where we are going to assemble the entire UI and also animate it later. So let's go ahead and assemble it. These are all our images. All that we need to do is just drag and drop them either here or in the timeline directly. I'll do it in the timeline so that it automatically gets aligned. So that's my home, the main home page, and above that will be the bottom sheet for filters, but in between them there is another layer which is the black overlay. For that, I'm going to create one rectangle inside After Effects itself. One easy way to create a rectangle is click on the rectangle tool, double click on it, and it'll create a rectangle which is of the size of the artboard, which perfectly works for us. This is the shape layer 1. I'm going to rename it to black overlay, and it's already filled with black and it's over homepage. It's fine. It has an opacity of 100% right now, but let's not bother about that. Let's bring in the other elements and then let's see what we can do about it. Let's bring the bottom sheet background and drag it all the way over the black overlay. We will align it to the bottom by going to the Align tab and clicking on Bottom Align. So this will align the bottom sheet to the bottom the way it's supposed to be. And after that, we need to align all this. We need to place all these elements of price, bedrooms, bathrooms, and amenities over the bottom sheet. So I'll zoom in a little bit and align all these things. So the amenities goes right at the bottom here, and the bedroom is the second one. The price was the first, and the bedroom is the second. The bathroom is the third, and amenities is the fourth. So this is the order that we are going to place these things with. I'll also make sure that the alignment is correct here. It doesn't quite matter, but it is just for the sake of our own hygiene, because it might get complicated. So it's better that we align it. So after bottom sheet, I'm going to go and place amenities, followed by bathrooms, followed by bedroom, and then price, right? So this is our UI. We have assembled it inside After Effects right now. Now we'll go and animate from the initial home screen all the way up to this. Now I do not want the animation to start at 0 seconds. I want it to start after some time, so that the user sees, or whoever is seeing the animation should see the home screen for a while before seeing the animation of the bottom sheet appearing. So I'll start it after around 1 second. This is the handle. I place it at 1 second. And I'll select the bottom sheet along with all the filter elements, select all of them, click and drag and bring them down. To make sure that they move in one single vertical line, I'll press and hold Shift so that it's constrained. Now I put them down, and also in the first stage, the black overlay has an opacity of 0. So I'll click the black overlay here, and to activate the opacity, the shortcut is keyboard T. I'll press T and it shows opacity here. So which is 100% right now. I'm going to make it 0%. So this is the initial stage of the animation that we are planning to make. Now let's go ahead and animate. In the animation, there are 3 things happening at the same time. 1, the bottom sheet is appearing from the bottom and going all the way up to top. 2, the black overlay is changing its opacity from 0% to 70%. And number 3, the home screen, which is at the background, is shrinking in size and it's aligning behind the bottom sheet, the filter bottom sheet. Let's go ahead and do one by one. The easiest of them is the black overlay. So let's go ahead and animate the opacity. And to animate it, starting at 1 second, my handle is at 1 second. I go ahead and click the stopwatch beside opacity and creates a keyframe here. Then I move 40 frames to the right. And to do that, I press and hold Command and Shift, Control and Shift in case you're using Windows, and press the right keyboard button 4 times, which is 40 frames. Now once I'm here, I create one more keyframe by clicking on this thing out here. And here I'll go and change, while the handle is on the second keyframe, I'll change the opacity to 70%. Now when I move the handle behind and run it through it, I see it's already animating from 0% to 70%. So one of the 3 steps is done. Let's go ahead and do the second step. To do the second step, I will select all of these, the bottom sheet, amenities, bathroom, bedroom, and price. I'll select all of them together and animate their position. Mind that my handle is in the place in the initial position of 1 second. The shortcut for position is P. I'll go and hit P on my keyboard. It reveals all the positions. I'll click on the stopwatch to add the first set of keyframes. Then I'll move 40 frames to the right. Again, Command Shift and the right button 4 times, 40 frames towards the right. And I'll add another set of position keyframes here. And this time while the handle is on the second set of keyframes, I will pull all these things up and place them on the screen. I'll ensure that the bottom of the background of this bottom sheet is aligning with the edge of the screen. And when we do this, you will see some sort of lines appearing. These lines are nothing but it shows that there's some sort of animation which is created between these 2 states. Now when you move the handle from this position, from the initial to the final position, you will see that our bottom sheet has also animated. So 2 out of the 3 things are done. Now let's go ahead and do the third step, which is where the home screen goes and sits behind the filter button. Well, honestly speaking, for every practical purpose, this filter bar coming from the bottom and sitting right where it should be completes this entire transition. But we will still go ahead and do it for the home just to make it a little more interesting. So I will increase this space so that I have a little more real estate to work over here. Now this is the home. Here we are going to animate two things, not just one. One is the scale. It's going to reduce in size a bit. And secondly, we will also bring it down a little bit so that it sits right behind the half card or the bottom sheet of the filters. Let's do one at a time again. So we select home and we will animate the scale, and the shortcut for that is S. So I go ahead and press S on the keyboard and it reveals scale. I click on the stopwatch. It creates a keyframe. I move 40 frames ahead. And in this, I'll have to add a keyframe, or I can directly change the values here and it'll automatically create a keyframe. Let's try that one this time. So I'll try and make it 90%. Yes, I think 90% is good. You saw the moment I entered 90 here and pressed enter, it automatically created a keyframe with the values 90. So when I run the handle over this, you see it's scaling while everything is happening. Now, while the scale is good, we would also want to bring the position a little bit because it's a little too high up in the air. So for that, I'll again bring the handle back to 1 second where I have started every other animation. I select home because that's what we're animating, and I will also animate the position, and the shortcut is P again. I held P, I click on the stopwatch, and then I move 40 frames ahead and I bring it down. Either I hold and pull it, or I can even use keyboard. I will use the arrow keys to bring it down. Yep, I think this looks good enough. Now, you'll probably be thinking that you just added a keyframe for scale. Where did it go? It didn't go anywhere, it just collapsed. You see when you click on this, you would see every other keyframe that you have added. So, you can transform, anchor points, rotation, opacity, other things that you can animate. But to do this, to reveal and to show this, there is another keyboard shortcut, which is U. U is more like a toggle. When nothing is selected, you press U, it'll collapse everything. When you press U once again, it'll reveal only the keyframes or only the rows where you have any keyframe added. So in case of bathrooms, bedroom and everything, it was one kind of keyframe each, which is position, mostly position. And in case of this, it is opacity. But in home, you see there are two kinds of keyframes that we've added, position and scale. And you see both of them because U reveals only the ones where you have added, the ones which are activated. So here we are. We are actually done with the animation. Now it's the time to make it a little more interesting. Because when I go ahead and play it, I was manually just running this slider. If you just bring the slider all the way to 0 seconds and press the space bar, you see this is how it actually plays. I do it once again. This is how it plays. It's fine, but it's linear. So it's time to make it a little interesting. So what we do is we select all these keyframes. We right click anywhere of them since everything is selected. We right click. We go to Keyframe Assistant and we click on Easy Ease. When you do that, you see the shape of all these keyframes have changed. They were diamond shape before, and now you would see the shape has changed into some kind of an hourglass. This indicates that some sort of easy ease is being applied to it, right? So when you directly click on easy ease, it applies some default values, but I would say it's always a good idea to go ahead and tweak them, right? So let's do this. So to do that, I would apply the same values to all of them, these initial keyframes, select all of them, right click any one of them and go to Keyframe Velocity. When I click on Keyframe Velocity, you see it has applied a default influence of 33.33% for incoming velocity as well as outgoing velocity. Now what this means is incoming velocity affects all the elements which is incoming into this point, which is ending in this point. As you see, there is nothing which ends here because this is the starting. So what matters to us for this set of keyframes is the outgoing velocity and the influence of that. So what I will do is I will not touch the incoming thing at all because it doesn't matter, nothing is going to change. For the outgoing velocity, I will change the influence to 35. I mean, of course, I could have kept it 33.33 as well, but these are some of the values which I like, I have been using, and it kind of works for me. Similarly, for these keyframes, let me select all of them. I right click on them. I go to Keyframe Velocity, and I again see the same window opening. So incoming and outgoing. And this time, the incoming matters to me because this is the ending keyframe of my composition. So things start somewhere and they come and end here. So the incoming velocity or the incoming influence velocity matters to me. And for this, and the outgoing doesn't. So I'm not going to touch it again. Whatever value is there, it's not going to affect my animation. So for this, I will change the influence value to 75. You can try out different values and see what you like. Now if I go and click on spacebar and play, you see it's not linear anymore. It's a lot smoother. You can try out different values to see how differently it behaves or how differently it reacts to the numbers that you enter, and then you can find out whatever suits you or whatever you like. 35 and 75 kind of works for me. I have been using it for some time, and for any UI or UX related animation, this just works. Now when you go ahead and play, you'll see it's smooth. It's not linear like the way it was before, right? This looks fine. This is almost done, but we can make it a little more interesting even now. If you see this bottom sheet, it's got 4 rows of things: the price, bedroom, bathroom, and amenities. And right now all these 4 things are appearing together along with the background, which is this one, the bottom sheet background. Because this is a timeline, and when all things are placed together, they start and they end together, which means that the animation is happening at the same time. But to make it a little more interesting, what I want to do is I want the first row, which is the price range, to appear first, then the bedrooms, then the bathrooms, and then the amenities. So to do that, we just move around the keyframes along the timeline, because it's a timeline. So when you move things towards the right, things appear later. When you move things towards the left, things appear before than the other set of things. And when you just select and drag them, of course, you can move them around the keyframe, but then you cannot measure because I want things to be uniform, and that's why we'll measure it again. And the shortcut to that is you select any keyframe, be it one or a set of keyframes in our case. You press and hold Option or Alt, and then press the right keyboard button. It'll move the selected keyframes by 1 frame. If along with that, if you pressed Shift as well, it will move the keyframes by 10 frames. So right now we don't want to go 10 frames, so 1 frame is good enough. So I'll go ahead and press Option. I'll not select price because I want the price to appear in whichever time it is appearing. I will delay the rest of the things which are behind it. So I'll select bedrooms, bathrooms, and amenities, press and hold Option, and press the right button twice to shift the keyframes 2 frames to the right. Now I'll deselect bedrooms because I'm done with it, and I will select bathrooms and amenities, shift it by another 2 frames, and then select amenities and shift it by another 2 frames. So each of these sets of keyframes are 2 frames away from the previous set. So now what it does is it introduces that delay, and that results in a very interesting motion. Do you see that? It seems some sort of an elastic or spring sort of animation where not everything is happening together, but after a short delay, and it makes it much better than before. Now that you have made this animation, let us also quickly do the reverse of it. That is, when the half card opens or the bottom sheet opens, let's also put it back where it was. And doing that is very simple. It's just about copying a few keyframes here and there. So if this is where the animation ends, let me just go ahead a few more frames. Maybe, I press and hold Command Shift and 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 50 frames ahead. And then I want it to pause for these 50 frames after the animation has happened. That is, the bottom sheet has opened. And then I want it to collapse and go back to the state where it was. That is, return back to home. And to do that, it's very simple. We just need to copy these keyframes. Till this point, I want this animation to hold it, to remain static. So to achieve that, I just need to copy these keyframes and paste them here. Because when this keyframe and the values in these keyframes and this keyframes are same, there's not going to be any animation in between these two states. So I'm back here, and to copy it, it's simple. You select Command C and Command V, but there's one catch here. You cannot select all of them and paste, because if you try and do that, you see what will happen. If I do a Command C and do a Command V, it's going to make a copy of all the different layers. So the way keyframe copies work is it just works within a particular layer. So I'll just have to do it multiple times. So I select this one, Command C and Command V. It's going to appear where my handle is, right? Next one, Command C, Command V. And for this one, since the same layer has two keyframes, I can copy both of them together, Command C and Command V, right? Now, we again go 40 frames ahead. And now we want everything back to the state where we started, which is nothing but these set of keyframes. So here, while my handle is here, I'll copy and paste these keyframes here. So again, copy paste. Right? So here we are done. And when we copy and paste the keyframes, so it also retains the easing values which we have applied to these. So if you remember, we had applied 75 for these and 35 for these. So this was the outgoing and this was the incoming. So these things get carried over here as well. So now since the order has changed, we need to apply an incoming velocity to these and outgoing velocity to these. We select all of these and select keyframe velocity, and I set the outgoing velocity to 35. Similarly for these, I would select all of them, right click, keyframe velocity. I will set the incoming velocity to 75, and this should bring back the way it is. Now let's go ahead and see the entire thing once, all the way from 0. That's it. It's done. Now if you remember, we had set our composition length to 10 seconds. Now this is too long a video. We don't want it. Our work was only till here. So what we'll do is just take the handle to wherever I want. Maybe 4 seconds is good enough. So while it's in 4 seconds, I go ahead and press the keyboard shortcut N. And when I do, it just trims the composition for these 4 seconds. Now beyond 4 seconds, it'll just loop. If you see, it's playing, and after 4 seconds, it just loops the same thing. Now, this becomes the length of your entire video. So when you render, it's going to render a 4-second video and not a 10-second. Now that I see it, I feel it's a little too slow. Maybe we should speed it up a bit. So I will just select all these keyframes, press Option Shift, and press the left button once so that I reduce the spacing between these by 10 frames. And I'll do the same for these as well. So I will select these last set of keyframes, press Option Shift and hit the left key button once so that it moves to the left side by 10 frames. I think this looks fine. This speed is good enough. So we'll trim it now, not at 4 seconds since we have made it faster. I'll trim it at 3 seconds. I'll go ahead and press N here. And this is our animation. Let me also show you how to export it now that you have created the animation. To do that, make sure you are in that composition wherever you have worked on the animation. Click on Composition. There are two options here. One is to use the default renderer of After Effects, which is the render queue. The other one, and a slightly better option I would say, is to use the Adobe Media Encoder queue. So it's an external render which comes with After Effects. It comes pre-installed with After Effects, I would say. It's a part of the Adobe Creative Suite. So let me show you how to do with that. So I'll click on Adobe Media Encoder queue and it loads up Media Encoder. There it is. It's Media Encoder, and you see this is our composition which we just added to queue from After Effects. To not touch any of these, H.264 can be the encoder, and this one can remain match source high bitrate. If you see anything else, you can always click on this drop down and pick up match source high bitrate. And this is the output file. You can go ahead and select where you want to save this, and after you are done, go ahead and click on this green button which says Start Queue. This will render the file, and voila, you have your first animation ready in the form of an MP4 file. I hope you learned something new today. If this was your first UI animation on After Effects, let me know in the comments. And if you post it anywhere in social media, don't forget to tag me. My handles are right there in the description. Now that you have done a simple animation really well, it's time to step up a bit. How about some fancy parallax scroll on a mobile device? Sounds interesting? Because that is going to be the next thing that I'm going to teach you. So stay tuned. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you get notified every time I upload a new video. If you get any doubts regarding this tutorial, let me know in the comments. I'll help you out. This is Sapta. See you guys in the next one.